Hi everyone, and welcome to this video on listening part 3 of the TOEIC exam. Now, in listening part 3, you are going to listen to short conversations between two speakers, and you're going to have 3 questions about each of those conversations. Let's have a look at some things to look out for, and also some things that you could use to improve. So, first of all, there will be 13 short conversations. Okay, so again, this is a very long part, and you have to understand that there will be a mix of difficulties. Some of the conversations will be easier, some of the conversations will be more difficult. All right, you will hear 3 questions for each extract, and there are 4 options. Choose the best option, A, B, C, or D, to answer each question. Now, the first thing that I want to point out here is the standard advice that I usually give for multiple choice, which is sometimes you can't find the right answer, but you might be able to eliminate the wrong answers. Okay, so as you're listening, if possible, cross out some of the ones that you hear are wrong. That way, if you do have to take a guess, you're guessing from 2 options rather than 3 or 4. For this one, make sure you are familiar with language used to agree or disagree. Things like, I couldn't agree more, I have to disagree, things like that. Also, study verbs of speech. Now, I've put 4 examples in here, but there are many more. But things like offer, suggest, advise, persuade. Okay, some of the questions may contain these verbs as well as some others. If you don't know these verbs, then it's very difficult to answer the question. So rather than saying, what does the manager say? It might say something like, what does the manager suggest doing? So you need to make sure you know your verbs of speech. Sometimes the question will ask who a particular speaker is, and then it will give you 4, for example, jobs. So listen for clues. They are never going to directly say, I am a, but you're listening for vocabulary that would tell you the answer. So look at my example here. I'll hand back your essays during tomorrow's lesson. And the question is, who is the man? Is it A, student, B, a teacher, C, a parent, or D, a police officer? All right, well, hand back your essays. So it tells us that it's something to do with education, which means that it's probably going to be a student or a teacher. And I will hand back your essays tells you that this is going to be a teacher. A student would say, I'll hand in my essay during tomorrow's lesson. On each page, one of the extracts will refer to a graphic. Okay, what I mean by a graphic, that could be something like a map, it could be a price list, it could be a timetable, something like that. Make sure you look closely at that graphic and try to identify what information the question is asking for. All right, for example, with maps, make sure that you are familiar with words like opposite, near, between, and things like that, because it might say, we'll go to the cafe opposite the zoo. And then there will be a cafe next to the zoo and a cafe opposite, and you have to pick the correct one. If it's a price list, make sure that you are familiar with words like cheapest or most expensive. If it's a timetable, make sure you know words like earliest or latest, because these are the kind of questions they might say, what time is the earliest train to Manchester? In order to prepare for this part, I would watch interviews with your favorite celebrities. In English, of course. Okay, so find a celebrity that you like. That could be a musician, it could be an actor, a sportsman. Go onto YouTube and just type in interview with that person. What you will realize when you watch it is that conversations are not a tennis match. They are not question, answer, question, answer, question, answer. Okay? Sometimes people will give more indirect answers to the question. So when I say, what is your favorite color? The direct answer would be blue. But an indirect answer might be something like, well, I'm not a huge fan of red. If pushed, I might go for green. Actually, no. No, I'd say it's probably blue. Okay, so you see how it's a longer answer. Also, I've noticed with this part that sometimes you have to understand the situation, not just the question and the answer. All right. So if the conversation is happening on a plane, try to think back to your experiences of a plane and how much information you listen to and understand, and how much information you just pick up from this situation. This can be quite difficult, but with practice, you can certainly improve your listening skills. If you don't want to watch interviews with celebrities, then of course that's fine if it's too difficult. My recommendation would be using the website Ello, ELLLO.org. And on there, you can find short conversations between different speakers of 2 or 3 minutes with multiple choice questions. So that would be perfect for practicing this part. That's it. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you found it useful. And I hope you'll join me again for the next video, which will be listening part 4. Take care.